Hello and welcome to our viewers here in Nigeria and all around the world. Here's what is coming up on the program today. King Charles resting at home after beginning outpatient cancer treatment on Monday. And goodwill messages pouring from all around the world for King Charles III following the cancer diagnosis. Plus on the program, Senegal's president extends his stay in office, all thanks to the legislature approving a new bill. The World Today starts right now. And wherever you're watching from around the world, we are live from our headquarters here in Lagos, Nigeria. I am Kelly Egiga. Let's get things started now as Britain's King Charles III is said to be resting at home after beginning outpatient cancer treatment on Monday, the day Buckingham Palace revealed his cancer diagnosis. They have not released details about the type of cancer the king is treating, but the king has postponed all of his public duties, save for state duties and his regular weekly meetings with the Prime Minister. The king's absence means other senior members of the royal family have to step up in covering royal duties. And earlier today, the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, was seen handing out honors at Windsor Castle. She's known to be one of the hardest working members of the family, carrying out 457 engagements in 2023, while the king attended to 425. Some of the king's duties will be shared by other members of the family. She was also at a community centre in Eastwood in Nottinghamshire. And for the Prince of Wales, he is expected to return to royal duties on Wednesday, his first public service since his wife Kate had a surgery last month. He will not only carry out engagements without Kate, who is not expected to return to public duties until after Easter by his side, but he will also be tasked with covering some of the king's public duties in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, across the country, people have been expressing their good wishes for the king and keeping him in prayers. And those good wishes have been coming in from all around the world, even from the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, who says he's in regular contact with the king and is thankful the illness was caught early. He had told the BBC he was shocked and sad to hear of the king's cancer diagnosis. And US President Joe Biden has commented on the king's health, saying navigating a cancer diagnosis, quote, takes hope and absolute courage, adding that he and his wife are praying for the king's swift recovery. In the meantime, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi wishes the king's speedy recovery and good health. And French President has not left out Emmanuel Macron. He says his thoughts and prayers are with the British people. And the Prime Ministers of Canada and Australia have let the king now know he is in their thoughts. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Philip Davis, commends the king for his openness in sharing his cancer diagnosis, adding that he's shining a light on a challenge faced by many people around the world. The New Zealand Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, also encourages the king to stay strong. And many in the UK are commending the king for his openness revealing his cancer diagnosis. Oncologists in the country hope this will encourage more people to talk about their symptoms if they suspect they might have cancer and to seek advice. Our London correspondent, Junana Lankar, is in our London studios, and of course she has this report.
The King's cancer diagnosis is the lead story on almost all of today's front pages. Not just here in Britain, but across the world. World leaders have used X to express their shock and, most importantly, to send their best wishes. US President Joe Biden writes here on the platform, navigating a cancer diagnosis, treatment and survivorship takes hope and absolute courage. Jill and I join the people of the United Kingdom in praying that His Majesty experiences a swift and full recovery. Buckingham Palace said in a statement released to the press on Monday night, during the King's recent hospital procedure for a benign prostate enlargement, a separate issue of concern was noted. Subsequent diagnostic tests have identified a form of cancer. The 75-year-old monarch is already undergoing treatment and is stepping back from public duties during this time.
I think generally the mood music across the UK is obviously one of shock and one of worry and one of anxiety. He has only just taken up the throne, but it looks on the positive side, and you see pictures of him walking around. He looks like he's in good health. He's working as much as ever. He has been in the last few weeks and months. And actually, Queen Camilla has been saying how she thinks he's a workaholic. He needs to slow down sometimes. So I don't think you're seeing any of the physical signs of any deterioration, but it is obviously shocking nonetheless.
Known for being a workaholic, the diagnosis is likely to be professionally devastating for Charles, who was the longest-serving heir to the throne in British history before he became king on the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth, on September the 8th, 2022.
We should really be careful not to overload him, because he started off very enthusiastic, firing on all cylinders, wanting really to change the ecology, change the youth, change this. So he had a real full menu. But right now, he's got to delete everything and make sure that he takes care of himself.
Well, as to be expected, since the crack of dawn, thousands of people have travelled from across the country here to Buckingham Palace to offer their well wishes to the royal family. As the world awaits further information about the health condition of King Charles III, all we can do now is to keep him and his loved ones in our thoughts and prayers. Juliana Olayinka reporting for Channels Television News in London.
And our London correspondent Juliana Olayinka joins us live now on the program. Juliana, this must be devastating for the royal family. I mean, the king has been barely 2 weeks out of hospital.
Well, I think devastating is the appropriate terminology to describe what's happened over the past 24 hours. It was just on Monday night yesterday that Buckingham Palace released an unprecedented, but of course incredibly short statement confirming that during the treatment of King Charles, when he had his enlarged prostate, that a form of cancer had been found. And whilst we know that the king is in high spirits, according to the palace, I think this would be devastating, not only for the king, but for his entire family. One thing that is clear is that the king does take his health incredibly seriously. Of course, he is the longest running heir to the throne in British history. He was waiting to be king for almost 70 years. And during that time, we have been told that he adhered to a very strict diet. So the king doesn't take any processed foods, and he takes his health very seriously. In fact, I believe if we look at some of the reports that have been put out today about the king, he has only been seriously sick a few times in his life. Twice, of course, during the COVID-19 pandemic, which he managed to recover from extremely well when he was infected with the coronavirus. And then, of course, he's had several injuries because he was a polo player for several years. But from the conversations I was having with members of the British public and tourists who flocked to Buckingham Palace to deliver their well wishes today, I think, cancer is something that most of us are afraid of. If you look at some of the statistics, it does show that 1 in 2 of us will suffer from some form of cancer at one point in our lives. And it is, of course, incredibly deadly. So yes, devastating, but I'm sure, as to be expected, the king, of course, will be surrounded by the world's leading health professionals. So hopefully he will be back up and running and continuing on with his public duties as soon as possible.
And are they obligated to reveal details about the king's health?
Yeah, I think it is quite interesting that Buckingham Palace decided to step away from protocol last month and announce to the public that the king was undergoing medical treatment for this enlarged prostate. And actually, quite eerily, it was on this day, February the 6th, in 1952, that his father, King George VI, died from lung cancer. A lot of the British media are shying away from talking about it, but I think that's an incredibly important point, especially as, of course, the statement stopped short of saying exactly what form of cancer the king had, but nevertheless they decided to relay that information anyway. And I think that's incredibly important, because in the days after the king or Buckingham Palace did make that announcement about his enlarged prostate, according to cancer research sites, interest in men checking themselves surged by up to 1,000%. So it is a good thing because, of course, it provides more public awareness, but I think we are absolutely not going to be getting running commentary on the King's health. And I think that's fair. It is obviously a difficult time for the royal family, and certainly they would want to keep some aspects of his condition and in fact his recovery private, because they do live such public lives. And I think there's one thing when you've got to talk about your health condition to your family, but when you have to think about what sentences you can put together to explain it to the entire world, that's heavy. And yes, of course, it does come with him being the head of state, but still, I think most people and the British media are respecting the fact that we will not be receiving a running commentary, and we just wait. The world awaits further updates on his condition.
Well, Juliana, while we are on the subject of health, how is Princess Catherine's recovery process? I'm assuming the British press has been keeping tabs with as much as they can regarding that.
You're absolutely right. The Princess of Wales, Catherine, she was released from hospital just a few days ago. Again, I think that was the beginning, wasn't it, of the health scares, when we got an update from Kensington Palace saying that the princess had undergone some form of abdominal surgery and would not only be spending 3 weeks in hospital, but at least 3 months away from public duty. I don't think we're going to be seeing the princess until after Easter. So now the responsibility falls squarely on the shoulders of Prince William, the Duke, the Prince of Wales, former Duke of Cambridge, who will be under immense pressure at the moment. Let's not forget that King Charles is 75 years old, and even before we found out about his cancer treatment, just because of the nature of social media, lots of people were questioning whether or not, after the Queen's death, the King would abdicate to the Prince. Now, that is not a topic of discussion at the moment. In fact, I think the royal family are all rallying around together to make sure, that there is nothing to be seen, nothing to be heard. I think Princess Royal, Prince Anne, she's been at Windsor Castle today. She was pictured handing out honours. We know that Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, has arrived in London from Montecito. His wife, Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, is staying behind in Los Angeles with her 2 children. Perhaps they may come at some point. But I do think that, Prince William has a lot of pressure because Catherine is, of course, recovering from surgery. So not only is he going to have to pick up family duties in terms of, just looking after the children. Yes, we know that they've got a lot of help. But of course, now he is going to have to step up, and people are going to expect a lot from him. I think one thing we cannot forget is that public sympathy for the royal family, not just sympathy but empathy, has reduced slightly. I think, the rift between the 2 brothers, hasn't played out too well. So I think there are hopes, not just across this country, but certainly around the world, that, the 2 brothers can come together. Prince Harry was on the phone with his father yesterday. He's in London now. Is Prince William going to let some of that bitterness and tension go? I think it's absolutely fundamental at the moment. But like I said, we are not going to be receiving a running commentary on King Charles's health. We are also not going to be receiving a running commentary on the condition and the recovery of the Princess of Wales. So what we can do at this time is continue to keep King Charles III, as well as the entire royal family, in our thoughts and prayers, and we wish the King a speedy recovery.
Well, it must be a very difficult moment for the royal family. Our London correspondent Juliana Olayinka, thanks indeed for your analysis. And we're checked in on Prince William, the Prince of Wales, earlier. He has been away from the public eye, attending to his wife, Princess Catherine, who had abdominal surgery last month. And Prince Williams will be returning to royal duties from tomorrow, Wednesday, 1 week since the Princess's surgery. Now, one of his engagements tomorrow will be the annual London Air Ambulance fundraiser, and the other will be a new investiture ceremony at Windsor Castle, not far away from his home. It's said to be consistent with what Kensington Palace has said to the public, with them forecasting Princess Kate will return to her duties and full capacity around the Easter period. And we're also hearing the King's other son, Prince Harry, has arrived in the UK after traveling from the US to see his father, the King. The media reports in the UK say he pulled up at Clarence House, the London home of King Charles III and Queen Camilla. Two black SUVs, which were seen leaving Heathrow Airport's VIP Windsor suite earlier this afternoon, were seen arriving at the royal residence. Observers say they are not certain the family gathering will bring together Prince Harry and Prince William, and there are no plans for both to meet. And you're watching The World Today. We're due for a break, but still to come on the program, Rio authorities declare health emergency as they try to contain the spread of dengue fever. Please stay with us. And many thanks indeed for staying with us. Just before we head to Rio, let's stay with the health status of King Charles III, and let's get to bring in general practitioner with the National Health Service in England, Dr. Essien Okorobi, who joins us live now from Birmingham. Dr. Okorobi, thanks as always to see you. How common is it for doctors to discover cancer diagnosis in patients during regular checkups?
Thank you very much, Kelly, for having me on the show. Well, I would say it is very common for cancers to be picked up during regular routine checkups. As a matter of fact, the National Institute for Health and Care Research, have written that almost 90% of patients with cancer are diagnosed after visiting their GPs or their family doctors in primary care. So this shows the importance of routine regular checkup, especially with the rising trend of cancer cases. I mean, in 2020, the total number of new cases of cancer stood at 18.1 million. And this figure is projected to increase by 55% come 2040. So cancer is on the rise, and I think the more regular checkups people engage in, the more likelihood that they get their cancer diagnosis picked up early. So I think it's not just about picking up cancers in routine checkup, but more importantly, how early the cancer is picked up.
Yes, and the specific type of cancer the King has not been disclosed just yet. But what types of cancers are predisposed to men, especially here in Nigeria?
Well, you're absolutely right. Buckingham Palace have not disclosed specifically what kind of cancer the King has. And, our deepest thoughts and prayers are with the King. But one thing that was said during the announcement is that his cancer was caught early. And for me, that's very important. And to answer your question, the most common cancer globally in men, of course, is prostate cancer. We know that, of course, that's not the cancer the King has got, because that has been stated clearly. But that's the most common cancer in men. men. And as age increases in men, the likelihood to have prostate cancer also increases. And usually, typically, they present with symptoms with like blood in the urine, problems with passing, urine and things like that. So when these symptoms are seen, people or men are advised to check in with their doctors, with their GPs, to either have a blood test, to check their PSA, or have their prostate examined. There are other cancers that are common in men, like lung cancer and bowel cancer or colorectal cancer. Likewise, in women as well, breast cancer seems to be the most common type of cancer. But Kelly, as I said earlier, the message, surrounding these entire diagnosis of the king's cancer is that it was caught early. And early detection of cancer, greatly increases the chances for successful treatment of cancer. And there are two components of early detection of cancer, which is early diagnosis on the one hand and screening on the other hand. And with early diagnosis, we talk about people who have got symptoms suggestive of cancer, for example, a lump in the breast, vaginal bleeding in postmenopausal women, blood in your urine, weight loss. And these people can present to health facilities on time to encourage early diagnosis for cancer to be detected early. And on the other hand, screening exercise for people who have no symptoms but are otherwise well in themselves to present for screening. For example, women between the ages of 50 and 70 will go for their 3-yearly breast mammogram to screen for breast cancer. Young ladies between the age of 25 and older ladies up to about 64 would go 3-yearly for their cervical pap smear to screen for cervical cancer. And the same with things like bowel cancer for people over the age of 60. So if this is done together with presenting early when you have a suspicious diagnosis, then just a bit like the king, cancer can be caught early.
Mm. And Dr. Hussein, just before we consider the ways forward, I'd like to squeeze in two questions. We know that age is the number one risk factor here for most cancers. The king is about 75 years old. How crucial is this? The second part of my question is the fact that in terms of data, the numbers don't lie. In the UK alone, I understand about 1,000 people a day are diagnosed with cancer. Perhaps you can confirm this for us.
You're absolutely correct, Kelly. The age plays a major role in majority of cancers as a big risk factor. And as I said earlier, for example, prostate cancer is more likely to be found, in men above the age of 50. And as these men get towards the age of 70, the chances of having prostate cancer, nearly doubles. So age is a big factor in terms of cancer diagnosis with some specific cancers. And as I said, the incidence of new cases of cancer is on the rise globally. And, in the UK as well, it's not an exception. And people get diagnosed daily in their thousands in the UK as new diagnoses for cancer, different forms of cancer.
Yes, so Dr. Ukorobi, we are rounding off now with our interview with you. In this part of the world, we know how when people fall ill, they just get to self-medicate. And some of them say, look, I have malaria, I have typhoid. So what are the early ways? How can we prevent cancers?
Very much, Kelly. It's important to know that 30 to 50% of all cancers are preventable. So that tells us that, we have a high chance of preventing cancer. Earlier on, I talked about, early detection, which is a big step. So early diagnosing and screening for cancers, which is a big step in ensuring that, if it is there, it is caught early. But for people who haven't got cancer at all, then of course there are some lifestyle modifications that can be put in place to reduce your chances of getting a diagnosis of cancer. Of course, one of them is to stop smoking. Smoking alone is the biggest avoidable risk factor for developing cancer. And just smoking alone kills more than 8 million persons per year from cancer and other kinds of illnesses and diseases. So that's one way to prevent cancer diagnosis. Reducing alcohol is also very important. Having a healthy lifestyle. We heard earlier on the show that even the king has a strict diet regimen, and so healthy diet is very crucial in terms of preventing cancer, and not just cancer, preventing a wide range of other illnesses and diseases. And of course, staying physically active, ensuring that you're not overweight, you're not obese, you're exercising regularly, because excess body mass index was responsible for at least 3.4% of all cancers when a study was done in 2012. So it is important to stay fit, it's important to stay healthy, eat healthy as well, avoid bad habits like smoking, reduce alcohol or stop it completely. And of course, once again, early detection, which involves early diagnosis if you've got a symptom, and presenting regularly for screening for cancers.
And it's a fine place to anchor a conversation with you, Dr. Okoribi. I mean, you say 30 to 50% of cancer is preventable, and you also say that early detection is pivotal. But thank you indeed. Great analysis as always, Dr. Isen Okoribi is a general practitioner with the National Health Service in England, live for us in Birmingham.
Thank you.
And let's switch gears now to focus on news from the United States, beginning with the weather, which has been nothing but awful for California residents, many of whom are without power due to one of the most dramatic weather days in recent memory. Heavy rain and high winds lashed an area from Santa Barbara to LA and is expected to bring more rainfall in major cities. Hours ago, however, rainfall was expected in San Diego County, and there were flash floods warnings for Riverside County, southeastern Orange County, and northwestern San Diego County. A powerful atmospheric river field storm is said to be hovering above Southern California, unleashing torrential rain and floods across the metro Los Angeles area. The slow-moving storm has turned deadly, with at least 2 confirmed deaths as trees topple over homes and streets. Intense flooding and mudslides have also damaged many homes in the state. And more from the United States politics this time. But just before we head there, let's bring in a correspondent, a Washington, D.C. correspondent, Maria Baird, who joins us live on the program. Maria, great to see you again. Bring us up to speed as to what exactly could be playing out here.
Thank you. Yes, we're seeing about a year's worth of rain in California, and this amount of rain is very unprecedented. We have not seen this type of rain before, especially in California, where typically you don't have this type of precipitation at these rates. And so what you're seeing is major mudslides. You're seeing people having to evacuate, as you all have seen, areas that are almost like rivers. So we know that this part of the country is not used to this type of atmospheric weather.
All right. And so I'm also just wondering, perhaps, when we also look at the political terrain at the moment in the U.S., I guess we should focus indeed on the issues around the court, where we understand the ruling that former President Donald Trump does not have presidential immunity and can be prosecuted on charges of plotting to overturn the 2020 election. So break that down for us, Maria.
Yes, you are correct. As we've seen, this has been a very heightened political season as we have a president for the first time that has been charged in many courts across the country. And so what we'll begin to see is whether or not he will be eligible to be on what most people are concerned about as the November ballots. We know that the primary elections are underway, but the main general election is what people are concerned about. And so if we find out and the courts do say that he is ineligible, then we we could be looking at a very interesting political landscape, because obviously he has been the popular vote across the country, and even in what they've called just general election oversight conversations, what many Republicans are looking to as their potential candidate that would be running in the general election. So this would definitely overturn and turn many Republicans a bit concerned about what will be next for their party. As we've seen, some states have said he's eligible to be on the ballot, but this ruling could potentially cause great concern for the Republican Party.
Maria, I wonder, how will this impact on the other charges he faces? Because it has been a couple of years now since that election, and there are yet to be any repercussions on the former president for his actions.
Yes, there has been, we know that clearly we've seen there's been other allegations, fraud cases. We've seen New York, Washington. There's been all types of other legal indictments that he has received that are outside of the January 6th event that he's also been convicted of, but they have not brought him to the point where he has been eligible to run for election. This January 6th, the attack on democracy is the one that those who are hoping that he's not on the ballot are hopeful will be able to see him not to be a candidate, because what we know at this time is that he has a huge following in the Republican Party and that he has a very strong chance of winning the general election.
Maybe just one final question around the elections. The former president has the Republican presidential ticket at this point. Can he move any further in the race to the White House when you look at how things are unfolding and playing out in the U.S.?
It's going to be a bit challenging, but obviously, as we've heard him say before, staying in the spotlight and staying in the news keeps him very relevant. And so he has a very strong base. And so he could be seeing himself getting closer to the White House. The challenge is going to be, as you mentioned earlier, which is if the court ruling about him being involved in the spearheading of the January 6th attacks, and if that is ruled to be the Constitution would then have to reference the fact, which it does, that that type of attack and that type of conviction could make you ineligible for being able to run for office. And that is the only piece at this time that many Democrats see as a viable option to being able to remove him from getting closer to the White House.
All right, so Maria, just before we let you go, let me bring you again in on issues around the weather in the U.S. We understand it's been a very crazy period for the U.S., especially looking at the torrential rains and all of that. We had mentioned the issue of the atmospheric river earlier on, and I'm wondering for our viewers who do not understand just how dangerous is that for people who reside in those areas. The other part of my question is the fact that the U.S. has also seen a very crazy weather situation since last year. So any good news for those who are looking forward to the spring?
Well, spring is supposed to come a little earlier this year. That's the predictions with the weather. And so those individuals on the East Coast and some of the Midwest regions are excited about that. But what you're seeing in the West and the Southwest regions is some extreme atmospheric temperatures, which we know, as you said, have been happening for quite a while now, over the past year. And all of that is just due to, as we know, global warming. And so as we look at that, you're just seeing very extreme weather conditions that areas like California are not used to. And as you mentioned, some of the dangers that are posed for their lives of individuals, and also, obviously, the amount of property damage that is actually being undertaken as a result of these very extreme weather conditions.
It's a fine place to live. It's Washington, D.C. correspondent Maria Bird. Thanks indeed for analysis. And away from the U.S., authorities in Rio de Janeiro have declared a health emergency as they try to contain the spread of dengue fever. The incidence of the mosquito-borne disease quadrupled in Brazil in January compared to the same month last year. Now, Rio has registered 10,000 cases so far this year compared to 23,000 for the whole of 2023. And dengue can cause a fever, severe headache and pain behind the eyes, muscle and joint pain, and a blotchy rash. Rio City Hall announced it would open 10 treatment centers for people with the fever. Health officials have also urged people to prevent being bitten by mosquitoes by applying repellent. Let's take you to Chile, where there are many people still missing as wildfires continue to raze homes in the region. More than 120 people have already been killed in the fires, which have burned down thousands of homes. And President Gabriel Boric said the blaze was the worst catastrophe to hit the country since the earthquake of 2010, precisely around February, in which more than 500 people died. The smoke from the fires could be seen from space satellite images shown. The satellite image shows fires in the Valparaiso region. The fires broke out last week amid an unusual heat wave that had drawn tourists to the seaside towns of the region, which are normally cooled by sea breezes. And farmers in Spain have joined their European counterparts in staging protests across the country. Like farmers elsewhere that demand more flexibility from the EU, tighter controls on the produce of non-EU countries, and more help from their government. In several regions, they blocked roads and caused severe disruption to motorists. A large demonstration in central Madrid is planned for later this month. And earlier today, farmers took to the streets of agricultural areas in Spain's northern interior, driving tractors in convoys, beeping horns and waving Spanish flags and brandishing placards. Back here in the continent, a political crisis could be brewing even further in Senegal as the parliament voted to delay presidential elections, which were supposed to have held on February 25 to December 15. The president's announcement about a delay to the presidential polls had resulted in a protest all weekend, and parliamentary backing came late on Monday when 105 MPs in the 165-seat assembly voted in favor of the measure, which delays the election until December and keeps Sall in office until his successor is installed. The bill initially set an election date on August 25, and the move to delay the polls even further is likely to risk more unrest. The president, who has served the maximum 2 terms, was originally due to leave office on April the 2nd. And 4 suspects have been arraigned in court in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, over a gas explosion that killed 6 people and injured nearly 300. The main suspect, the tenants of the property where the blast happened, surrendered to the police on Monday, although Derek Kamathi has denied any wrongdoing. He appeared at the Milimani Law Courts along with 3 officials of the National Environment Management Authority. They're yet to be charged, but local media reports that authorities are considering bringing several charges against them, including murder, abuse of office, and negligence resulting in harm. The court arraignment comes days after President William Ruto ordered the arrest and prosecution of government officials who allowed the gas plants to illegally operate in a residential area because of incompetence and corruption. Last Thursday, a lorry carrying gas cylinders blew up just before midnight in a densely populated area of the city, causing several fires. Away from Kenya, authorities in the southwestern Somali town of Belit Hawo say 6 Ethiopians are among 7 people that were killed in an overnight attack by suspected Al-Shabaab militants. The gunmen attacked a compound, killing 5 women and 2 men. The district commissioner of the town, Abdul Arog, says the 6 slain Ethiopians are ethnic Oromo, while the 7th victim is a Somali woman. Yes, the Somali woman killed was a neighbor of the Ethiopians who came out when she heard the gunshots and shone a light on the attackers. Some of the wounded have been taken to Mandera, Kenya for treatment, with the victims since buried in Belit Hawo. Authorities suspect Al-Shabaab militants to be behind the attack. However, the group is yet to comment on the attack. You're watching The World Today. We're due for another break, but coming up on the program, Chinese community in Nigeria celebrates the start of the Chinese New Year of the Dragon. Stay with us. We'll have more in just a moment. Many thanks indeed for staying with us. In South Africa, residents can expect an increase of between 72 Celsius to 75 Celsius per litre in the price of petrol on Wednesday, with diesel expected to increase by between 70C and 73C. This is according to data released by the Central Energy Fund before the official announcement from the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy this week. Projections for the fuel price in February have steadily deteriorated throughout January, going from no change at the beginning to a significant increase by the end of the month. This is predominantly due to a rise in the price of oil due to the conflict in the Middle East and rising geopolitical tensions.
South Africans will have to dig even deeper into already shallow pockets as the price of fuel is expected to increase significantly in February. While most consumers are recovering from festive season spending and stretched budgets, the latest fuel price prediction from the Automobile Association, AA, points to a steep hike at the pumps from Wednesday. The AA said with household budgets in the red, this new fuel price increase will come as a double blow. Acting National Spokesperson, Parliamentary Coordinator Matthew Parks explains.
We've seen the cost of living really rising. Inflation has peaked at about 7.8% earlier this year. Electricity has gone up by 18.65% this year. It's going to go up by 12% next year. Food inflation, which hits workers the hardest, has really gone out of control. So workers are really struggling. Yet at the same time, you find that government and employers continuously blame workers for the economic crisis. They continually seek to impose wage freezes upon workers in the public and the private sector. We think that government really must do more. We appreciate that government cannot do much about the war in Ukraine and the perennial conflicts in the Middle East, which always push up the international oil price. We're always going to be further exposed as a country because we import oil to these international oil price fluctuations, which then have an impact upon the fuel price. But government can do something about the fuel price tax regime.
While the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy is yet to confirm this increase, the AA said that motorists could expect a litre of 95 octane to climb from 22 rands 44 cents to 23 rands 15 cents a litre. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channel Television News.
And a 9-man delegation from the German Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development is in Nigeria to continue conversations with several federal ministries on issues bordering on skills acquisition, development and exports between both countries. The ministries include Finance, Federal Ministry of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, of Budget and Economic Planning, and the Federal Ministry of Art, Culture and Creative Economy. Delegations is led by the German Minister of Economic Cooperation and Development.
It's a meeting holding at the request of the German Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, led by the Minister, Venja Scholz.
And also Mr. Chazo, the Director General Small Medium Enterprise Development Agency of Nigeria.
The minister comes with a proposal of cooperation between Nigeria and Germany on issues ranging from development of women-led MSMEs, skills development, and talent exports between both countries.
Our cooperation, I want to point out that is in our common interest. Nigeria is Africa's largest and most populous economy, and Germany is an export nation. We are interested in growing markets. So some 90 German companies are already active here in Nigeria, and one reason is that Nigeria has so many creative young people, and that is what companies like to have and why they are here. However, cooperation with Nigeria is also becoming more and more important for the resolution of shared global challenges, such as the climate crisis, but also with a view to peaceful solutions for the Sahel. I'm the Sahel president of the Sahel Alliance of the donors, and we are also aligned in the fight against terrorism.
Her proposals are attractive to the Nigerian government.
I thank you for this visit and your opportunity here today to engage in very important discussions here that promoting
continued cooperation between our two countries, particularly in the area of micro and small medium-scale enterprises, and in particular, women-led micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises.
And finally on the program, Chinese citizens around the world have been marking the start of another year and the start of spring. In Lagos, the consulate invited members of the diplomatic community, the Lagos state government, and members of the Chinese community in the state to celebrate the event. Our foreign affairs correspondent Amarachi Bani reports.
Under the cool, breezy sky of a major hotel in the Lagos metropolis, the Chinese consulate in Lagos holds a big party, one that happens once a year. Only this once-a-year party is the New Year and the Spring Festival. The Consul General, Ms. Yang Yuqing, in her address delivered in Mandarin, sprinkled with some English, welcomed invited guests and wished everyone success in the Year of the Dragon.
I hope all of you have witnessed success, happiness in the Chinese New Year of Dragon. Long-lasting China-Nigeria friendship. Thank you all. 谢谢大家.
It was followed by goodwill speeches from a select number of VIPs.
In the vibrant tapestry of Chinese traditions, we find a source of inspiration and admiration. The Chinese Gala is not just a celebration, it is a bridge that connects us across cultures and continents. It symbolizes the beauty of diversity and the strength that comes from understanding and embracing one another.
You contribute to our dynamic economy by providing jobs for our people, by bringing your beautiful and your delicious Chinese culinary tasted dishes. We appreciate that. You bring your science and technology. You bring your commerce, and we can see that your innovations are helping Lagos move forward to achieve the vision of the Greater Lagos Rising through the Blue Line project. Thank you, China. Thank you, Chinese diaspora.
The Chinese New Year is a time for joy, it's a time for reunion, it's a time for celebration. It's a time to reflect on the past year and look forward to the opportunities that the future holds.
The event was laced with cultural dances showing the fusion of Chinese and Nigerian values. Even the Consul General could not resist being the center of attraction herself. There's also a return of Chinese goodwill in Lagos.
I thank the Chinese community very well.
The Consul General later speaks on the shared relations.
We often say that Spring Festival is Chinese festival, but it also belongs to the whole world. Especially last year, UN announced that the Chinese Spring Festival will be the international festival. So I'm so glad that the peoples from all over the world, include Nigeria, can together celebrate New Year with Chinese people.
How Nigerian can one Chinese get?
I'm in Nigeria almost 21 years. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Yes, I'm Nigeria also too. Thank you. So far we are here. We appreciate. We thank you. Nigeria friends support us. So we so far here. So we are like one family.
And what a celebration without some fireworks. 2024 is the year of the dragon, according to the Chinese zodiac. The dragon symbolizing strength, energy, and vitality. Amarachi Ubani, Channels Television News.
And beautiful scenes there are the Chinese Dragon Festival. Happy New Year to every Chinese citizen. And that does it here for us on the show. Thanks indeed for watching. I am Kelly Egiga. Bye now.